Welcome to the Matt Stewart Sports High School Football Podcast. We are now just 3 weeks away until we kick off the Georgia high school football season with the Corky Kell Classic and the first Friday night of the regular season. And I look forward to once again calling play-by-play for the Corky Kell. And then on September 5th, starting my 12th season calling GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia. Like, subscribe, and follow. In this episode, we're going to visit with North Oconee Titans State Championship coach Tyler Aurandt. And the Titans are the favorites in my book to repeat as state champs in 4A. Then after that interview, going to drop my preseason AA All-State team, plus have some news and notes. And unfortunately, not all of the news is good news. In fact, most of it is not. But we'll save that for the end of the podcast. And that's after we hear from Coach Aurandt. But first, got a couple of big commitments to talk about, big decisions to talk about, not just commitments, since the last time I dropped my podcast. Let's start with 2027 North Cobb four-star Teddy Jarrard, who is rated as high as the number 12 junior quarterback in the entire country. Jarrard committed to Notre Dame, over 30-plus offers. Teddy, in his first season with the 6A Warriors, after playing his first two seasons with AA North Cobb Christian, threw for over 4,700 yards and 49 touchdown passes. So big decision for him as he gets ready to kick off his junior season. Also, Brooks County All-State four-star junior George Lammons decommitted from Texas A&M. He's rated as high as the number 2 tight end in 2027. 63 pass catches, 1,300-plus yards, 20 touchdowns as a sophomore. As I wrote on Twitter this past week, he is uncoverable. You can't cover him, especially in 1A football. So he's got a long way to go in his recruiting process. He's just now kicking off his junior season. Aquinas senior All-State wide receiver Jack Rhodes flipped his commitment from Navy to Virginia. Jack's had a phenomenal career going into his senior season with 122 catches, 2,174 career yards, and 27 touchdowns. So stick around. My conversation with North Oconee coach Tyler Aurandt is right around the corner. Remember, like, follow, subscribe. But before we do all that, let's count down my preseason AA rankings. Let's start with number 10, Thompson, 9-4 last season, and reached the quarterfinals under coach Michael Youngblood after winning the state championship in 2022. Top returning players, offense, they got quarterback Markevian Jones and athlete Jarrett Sinkfield, who's all-state. Defense, you got 3-star cornerback Kennedy Bailey, who's committed to Liberty, and linebacker Leonard Jenkins. Number 9 on my list, I've got Hatefield Charter. They went 8-4 last season under longtime head coach Winston Gordon. After 4 straight seasons playing in 4A, they were state champs in AA in 2019, and they've been playing 4A ball until last season. Top returners on offense include 4-star offensive lineman Chris Booker, who's committed to Alabama. Defense, you got tackle Kenny Fairley, 14 TFL and 6 quarterback sacks last season. Number 8 on the list, you got Pierce County, 12-1 last season, a quarterfinal finish under coach Ryan Herring. And it's been quite a run with 2 state championships for Pierce over the last 5 seasons, and stardom for former quarterback Stetson Bennett, bringing a lot of attention to the program. Of course, Stetson was not part of the last 5 years, but it's big time for the Bears. Got a lot to replace, not the least of which is another star quarterback in Cade McAtha. Great dual-threat quarterback, so he's finished up his eligibility. Their top returning players are running back Marquez Leggett and two-way star Chance Williams. Number 7 on my list, you got Sumter County, 10-2 under Coach Will Rogers last season. That was the best season ever for the Panthers in the program's 20-year history. Top returners, All-State defensive lineman Joshua Coleman and two-way star running back linebacker A.J. Curse, who earned All-State honorable mention last season. Of course, Sumter County, just 20 years, but going back to the old days, America's high school dominated the state back in the 1970s. Number 6 in AA, I've got Morgan County, 11-2 under Coach Clint Jenkins, quarterfinal finish last year. Best season for the program in over 30 years. Top returners include on offense All-State quarterback Davis Strickland and All-State running back Christian Munford. On defense, you got linebacker Jordan Gordon. Number 5, Carver, Atlanta. Bounce-back season for Coach Darren Miles. Team going 9-3 last year. Got to the state finals in 2021 and the semifinals the year after that, but then it took a step back in 2023, and then they bounced back in 2024. Top returners, two-way star, 3-star athlete, wide receiver / DB Terrius Favors, who's committed to Boise State. tight end Orlando Crafton, who's committed to Western Kentucky, and Sackmaster defensive end Michael Johnson. Number 4 on the list, Rockmart, 11-3, got to the semifinals under Coach Biff Parsons last year after getting to the state finals in 2023, and 33-6 the last 3 seasons. Top returners offense, you got 4-star offensive lineman Jaden Thompson and 2-way star running back / linebacker Nate Davis. Number 3, Appling County, got to the semifinals for the 3rd time in 4 years last year, but they ended up having to forfeit 10 wins for using an ineligible player. And then they made a change at head coach because of that controversy and scandal. So that makes them a little bit of a question mark here in 2025. So you ask, why do you have them at number 3 with all those questions? Well, because they hired Tucker Pruitt from Fitzgerald as their head coach. And Tucker Pruitt's one of the best coaches in the entire state championship coach with the Purple Hurricane. But the other twist of that story is this change did not come until May. So we'll see how this Pirates team reacts to that. They do have some good players coming back, and they got a great coach, so we'll wait and see what happens with Appling. But I'm predicting they're going to bounce back pretty quickly. Number 2, Callaway, 9-3 under Coach Pete Wiggins last season, but got knocked out of the playoffs in the 2nd round. That ended a stretch of playing in at least the quarterfinals for 8 straight seasons, and that run, of course, included a state championship in 2020. They got top returners, 2-way lineman Tyrone Fitton. Offense, they got wide receiver Caden James. Defense, they got linebacker Zay Anderson, who's committed to South Alabama. And number 1 on the list, no big surprise here. Carver Columbus, defending state champs, going 14-1 under Coach Pierre Coffey. He moved on to an administrative position, and in comes one of the greatest players in school history, Jarvis Jones, to be the head coach. A welcome back Cotter kind of situation there for Jarvis Jones, who remember the old sitcom on television. Jarvis Jones, of course, after he starred at Georgia and was a first-round NFL draft pick and a Butkus Award winner, played 4 seasons in the National Football League with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In my mind, there might not be a heavier favorite in any of the classifications in Georgia high school football than Carver Columbus. This team is loaded. Even though they're playing 2-way football, they got more college talent than a lot of 6A teams. Their top returners include on offense, 4-star offensive lineman Parker Pritchett, who's committed to Auburn, 4-star 2027 offensive lineman Terrence Warren. You got 2 4-star offensive linemen on your AA offensive line. 3-star wide receiver KJ Miles, who's committed to North Carolina. Quarterback Matthew Mungeon, who had a spectacular state championship game. 3-star running back Kelston Tarver as well. On defense, you got 5-star defensive end Tristan Givens, who's committed to Texas A&M. And you have 3-star safety Antavius Watts, who's committed to Mississippi State. So you get the picture. Carver is stacked. And that's a look at my AA preseason top 10. Time now to welcome in North Oconee State Championship coach Tyler Aurandt. Coach Aurandt is starting his 9th season with the Titans with a record of 75-26, coming off a 15-0 record and 14-7 state championship game victory over Marist back in December. Coach, thanks a lot for being with us.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me on, Matt.
So what's life been like for Coach Aurandt and the Titans since that win in Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
It's been busy, but it's been per usual. I mean, it stays busy. I feel like high school football is becoming more and more of a year-round deal, where, there's always something going on. So, you're staying busy trying to stay on top of things, but you're also trying to find ways to take a break and get some rest. But it's been good. I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with this team and get started for this season.
Well, hopefully you had a chance to get a little bit of rest for the start of the season, which is quickly upon us. When I ask you about that state championship game and that win over Marist, one of the true blue bloods in the state of Georgia, what's the first thing that pops into your mind?
A gritty win over a really, really good football team that, historically it has, always been there in the end. And they're just so consistent that, it's one of those things I told the kids after the game, how proud I was of their resiliency because they went through a lot of ups and downs in that game with a couple turnovers and then just some other things that took place throughout the game, on such a big stage, and they handled that with such good, great maturity. I was proud how the game transpired and how they handled all those different things.
Coach, we had some shootouts there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Yours was just a classic high school, or just a classic football game for that matter, with a lot of great defensive plays and some big offensive plays. It was just a really fun one to call, so thanks for that. I do appreciate that. So, wasn't your first big championship. It was your first state championship as a head coach, but you were part of Chris Hatcher's staff at Valdosta State when you guys won a national championship. You were part of Mickey Kahn's staff at Grayson when you won a state championship. You've also been on the staffs of David Dean and Eric Godfrey. What have you taken away from all those experiences that shaped you into a state championship coach?
Yeah, you certainly draw from each one of those, and I've been very fortunate and blessed to be around some really good people that have done things the right way. And it started when I was playing for Coach Hatcher, and we won the first one, and just watching how he worked and how he showed up day to day and how consistent he was, and knew how important that was to winning. And then you take things from Coach Kahn, how to build a program and how to run a high school program, which is completely different. And then having a chance to work for Coach Dean and win a second national championship in Valdosta State. And just the relationship piece of how, to handle players and roster management and stuff like that. And so there's different pieces from every place that I've been. The most recent would have been Coach Godfrey at Parkview. And I just loved the way that he ran the program, and how mindful he was of the players and what they needed each week, whether you need to pull back or you could push on them a little bit, and just kind of learning how the flow of the season goes, and because football has changed. In the 3 years that I was at Grayson to the 3 years when I finished at Parkview is different, and how you manage kids. And I feel like Coach Godfrey did a really good job with multiple sport athletes and how to manage those kids, because we have a lot of those kids in our program, and just giving them an opportunity to be a kid and not be football or whatever their other sport 365 days a year, and being able to draw a line and say, you know what, they're still high school kids. They're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. You got to give them a chance to just go out and be a high school kid, because it's already hard enough. But then when you keep pressing and pressing and pressing, there becomes some resistance, and you don't want them to leave your program. So you got to find a good balance between the two.
And certainly there at North Oconee, you found that balance with state championships in basketball and in baseball. It's been a very dynamic athletic program over the last decade. I haven't released my 4A preseason rankings yet, but spoiler alert, no big surprise. You guys are going to be ranked number one with all the players that you have coming back. You ready to play this schedule? You got a big target on your back. Your non-region schedule is very difficult. You got Oconee County, new and improved Dalton with Chris Pruitt going up there to coach the Catamounts, Clark Central, and Jefferson, and that's before you even get into your region. How have you addressed that with your team that this year North Oconee is the team that has the target on its back? You probably have in the past, but even more so now coming off a state title.
Yeah, absolutely. We found a process that works for us, and I don't want to stray too far from that. I think it's very easy to find yourself trying to do more because you expect more from the teams that you're playing. And in the end, that could be, that could hurt your football team. So, you're trying to balance, what it's going to look like week in and week out, because you're going to get everybody's best shot. And we've kind of felt like that for the last 3 or 4 years, that every time we show up for a game, that's what you're going to get from everybody. But also it's what I went back to just a second ago, is remembering that they're high school kids, and, not pressing too hard too early. And kind of trying to find that balance of when enough is enough, and not running them into the ground, trying to get them ready for ball games, because I think we do have a very mature football team that has played a lot of ball games. And so this year's going to be a little bit different in terms of the volume, just because you've got so much experience. And then it's just trying to build depth. because if you're going to make a run, you're going to have some depth because there's going to be injuries throughout the course of the season and making sure guys are ready to step in the roles. But, we're excited. We think it helps us to play really good football teams early on. It helps prepare us for what's down the road. And so when you're talking about the first 4 ball games, there's some really good football coaches going to be on the other sideline that know how to prepare their teams. So, it's a great opportunity for us to be tested early on and to see where we're at and then make adjustments moving into region play.
No doubt, it should be a very fun non-region schedule. You're 49-3 with no regular season losses since starting the 2021 season. 1-3 and coming off a 5-6 record in 2020. What clicked? What changed so dramatically in your program?
That COVID year was difficult. We ran into some adversity and we played a really, really tough schedule. And I want to say we were 0-4 to start that year. And it was about that time where the kids, they kind of found a rhythm. If that's the right word of this is how we want to operate. And then I felt like it kind of bled into the next off season. But that senior class in 2021, much like the senior class in 2018, when we went from 1-9 to 9-3, they didn't like the results from their junior season. And, they made a very conscious effort to be different, to try and operate differently. They didn't like the idea. They didn't like the thought of us not being 500 in 2020. And they wanted to be different. We were going to play the exact same schedule, just flip the home and away. So it's still going to be just as hard, but now you got different challenges because you got different teams on the road. But that's what it was. It was just a commitment from those kids to try and do things differently. But I would tell you the game that really changed the course of our program is when we beat Jefferson. They were number 1 ranked team in the state to win the region championship at the end of the 2021 regular season. They had Malachi Starks, who everybody in the state knows who he is.
Yes, we do.
As talented as he is. And we played about as good as you could possibly play in that game and beat them at their place. And I think that was kind of what changed the trajectory of our program.
Of course, your high school is in the suburbs of Athens. How has the proximity to the Georgia Bulldogs football program and their recent, national championship runs and success maybe fueled your program's growth and success?
Yeah, I'll even speak from just, the surrounding areas of Athens. I think it has accelerated football in this area. There are so many people here that are so in tune with what Georgia's doing and what's going on in Athens that it drives the passion for high school football as well. Where I think, you go to any given stadium on a Friday night and they're going to be packed out because I think the passion for football in this area has taken off since Georgia won those back-to-back national championships. I would even say from the time Kirby got there that, it's kind of changed the trajectory of this area in terms of football. That's one thing that, we talk about as head coaches is how much different this area has become and how much more dominant it has become over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And I think a lot of that has to do with the proximity of being close to Athens, but what, the success that they have had has bled into the surrounding areas and helped us.
Like they like to say, it just means more. And certainly there in the Athens area on the high school level, it means more too. So you can't win state championships without great players. You bring back 4-star linebacker / tight end / do everything, Kamari Brooks. And what a spectacular state championship game he had last December. He's rated as high as the number 6 edge defender in the country. But really, for you guys, he's so much more than all that. He committed to the Georgia Bulldogs this past summer. Give us the coach's perspective on Kamari Brooks.
He will be a generational type player that I will get to coach. I don't know that there will be a more dynamic athlete. We've got some really good athletes, and we've had some good athletes come through here. But what he has done for our school, I don't know that anybody else will be able to replicate that. Winning back-to-back state championships in basketball then winning a football one in between those. He's so good physically, but I don't think people understand how smart and how intelligent he is. That I think that's what separates him. Is he's not somebody that you have to tell things. You don't have to tell him 2 and 3 times. Like he understands it, and he's very savvy from a football standpoint of understanding scheme and what the opponents are trying to do. And so he's usually in the right place at the right times. I mean, I'd say probably 98% of the time he's where he's supposed to be. He doesn't get out of position much, but that's because he understands the game so well. But then the next layer is his leadership. And when one of your best players is your best leader, you're going to have a chance to win a lot of ball games, and that's what he's been the last 2 years, and it's expected to be again this year. He's not afraid to open his mouth. He holds them accountable. He loves on them. He understands, where to draw the line. And like, I can push, and then he can build them right back up too. He's just a kid that, he's so well-rounded, and he has all the pieces that I'm so excited to see, where he goes from here, because he's going to have an opportunity to do some really special things as he goes throughout his career.
Yeah, I think 4 or 5 years from now, we can definitely, see him in the National Football League. There's a lot that goes into that, and a lot of football still to be played, but I think certainly has that potential, plus all the things that you just described about him. You bring back your 3-star quarterback, Harrison Faulkner. That's his college rating. He's a 5-star quarterback for you guys, committed to Georgia Southern in the spring. And, of course, his dad, Buster, is the OC at Georgia Tech. What have you seen from Harrison as he comes off that state championship and gets ready for his senior season?
He's so competitive, and you wouldn't think that he could be more competitive, but that's what we're seeing. It's just a whole nother level of the way he's competing right now. If anybody understands, what's riding on this, in terms of the pressure, the expectation, the desire to go and win ball games again, like, it's him, because he's been around football so much. And so, like, he has raised the level of his play. There's things that he wanted to work on this offseason that I feel like he's been able to clean up and improve, which I think is going to really help him this fall. But, man, you're right. He's a 5-star kid. He's a 5-star athlete. I know where they have him ranked at, but, Georgia Southern is getting one heck of a football player, and a great kid. And they're going to fall. They're already in love with him, but they're going to really fall in love with him when he gets on campus, and just the way he works and the mindset he takes. And I'll say the thing about those two kids that really sticks out to me is there's no entitlement there. Like, they just work their tails off. There's no expectation from either one of them that something's going to be given to them. I looked down there the other day, and they're running the scout team. Like, they're in the scout team running plays for our first team defense. And I told them afterwards, I'm like, what are y'all doing? And they were like, Coach, they needed help, and we just jumped in and helped. But that's who they are. And as a head coach, you can't appreciate that more, because it drives the motivation with the other players that, hey, if this guy's doing this, then I need to be doing this. So it helps our whole football team.
Yeah, I had a chance to visit with Clay Helton and interview him this past week at Sunbelt Football Media Days in New Orleans, and he's going to fit in well. He'll give a chance. He's going to have a real chance to compete for a starting job ultimately down there in Statesboro. So we wish him the best, but first this year and then into the future. You lose your 4-star wide receiver and nephew, Landon Roldan, to the University of Georgia, but you do bring back 4-star wide receiver and real speedster Dallas Dickerson, who committed to Kentucky this summer. Is it his turn to shine at that wide receiver position?
Yeah, they're similar players, but they're also different players, and they have different strengths. And, they were very complimentary last year of one another. And, just kind of feeling our way through what this is going to look like as you start a new season, and trying to get some things in place that, accelerate, our offense and what we're capable of doing. But Dallas is so dynamic. The speed is the first thing that jumps off the page, and when you see him play, he just has the ability to make plays down the field. He catches the ball really well. We've been really impressed. He's going to be asked to play a really big role on defense, much like Landon did last year for us.
Going to flip him over and play corner?
Correct. And I think he's ready to do that. The one thing is just, and it's with a lot of guys at this level, is consistency of being able to step into a big role and play a big role every single day, and not, pick and choose moments of, when do I want to go hard? When do I not want to go hard? I mean, that's the hardest thing in high school football, is just the consistency. And he's being challenged because he wants to go play in the SEC. And it's like, hey, dude, this is how we do things. And he's really taken that on. And I've been really, really impressed with him this summer as how he has, molded himself or put himself in a position to have a big year because of how hard he has worked. And that's a credit to him. And so I'm really excited to see, what he's going to be able to bring to the table this fall, being, kind of a featured guy offensively and defensively for us.
Going to give you a chance here before we go to brag about a few of the other guys, since we focused on those three. All total, you bring back 9 starters on offense, including 4 on the offensive line, which is a huge recipe for success, and 8 starters on defense, and you have to replace both corners. You already addressed what you're going to do with one of them right there. So what's the message to the team that's been there, done that, and hoping to do it again?
Obviously, you don't want them to get complacent. It's driving a desire to be hungry, and helping them understand that, man, this is not going to be given to you. You're going to have to work, and you have to stay hungry. And the hungrier they are, the more we're going to have a chance to be successful. So that's been part of the message. But then it's also, nobody cares. Work harder. That's over with. This team hasn't done anything, and nobody cares right now what you've done in the past. All that is a trophy sitting on a shelf now. And now this team's got to go prove what they're capable of. And that's probably what is the most fun about this for me, is you got a new team with a new group of kids per se. And you're trying to figure out what this team's going to look like and how to motivate this team. And we're super excited about, their opportunities and what we feel like they're capable of, but we got to go play. And like you said early on, you can get everybody's best shot. So you better show up every Friday night, or you're going to get humbled really quick. So we'll see over the next couple of weeks as we develop and we get in pads where we're kind of at. But I feel like we're in a good place right now, but we can't stop working, because there's plenty of teams out there that are just as hungry to go win another state championship or win their, first state championship like us. That are going to take, they're going to bring everything they got to get there.
Well, those trophies on the shelf, Coach, are certainly fun to have and look at, but you're right, it doesn't mean anything for the future, but it does mean that you did something in the past, and in your case, it was just 8 months ago. Look forward to catching up with the Titans in 2025. Coach, thanks a lot for being with us.
Thanks so much, Matt, for having me on. We appreciate everything you do for high school sports in this state.
Always great to visit with North Oconee head coach Tyler Aurandt, and, he stayed the course. Started out slow there in Bogart, Georgia, but he has built a powerhouse there in the Athens area. Brings just about everybody back, as you could tell from our conversation, from a team that went 15-0 a year ago, and some serious star power, too, in Kamari Brooks, Harrison Faulkner, and Dallas Dickerson. They're going to be tough to beat this year. All right, let's move along. Like, follow, subscribe, and let's get to our AA preseason All-State team. Going to start at quarterback with Davis Strickland from Morgan County. Over 3,100 yards passing last year, 40 touchdowns recruiting. He has several offers, including East Tennessee State. Running back Kelston Tarver of Carver Columbus, 3-star running back. Over 1,200 yards rushing last year, 11 touchdowns, recruiting 9+ offers, including Troy, UAB, and Georgia Southern. Also at running back, Christian Munford, Morgan County. Over 1,500 yards rushing last year and 10 touchdowns. He's committed to West Georgia. Aaron Curse, Sumter County, over 900 yards rushing last year, 16 touchdowns, and getting it done on both sides of the ball. 83 total tackles, 17 TFL, and 5 quarterback sacks. He's committed to Eastern Michigan, and he was 2024 All-State. At the wide receiver position, KJ Miles from Carver Columbus, 3-star wide receiver who's committed to North Carolina. Deshaun Fedd from Crisp County, 43 catches for 849 yards, 7 touchdowns last year, All-State honorable mention. He was the Region 1 3A Athlete of the Year. Recruiting has 6+ offers, including Georgia State and Jacksonville State. Also at wide receiver, Jarrard Sinkfield from Thompson, 38 catches, 657 yards, 10 touchdowns. Also rushed for 768 yards and scored 7 touchdowns. And he also doubles up as our AA All-State kick returner. Tight end Orlando Crafton from Carver, Atlanta, first team All-Region 5 AA last year. He's committed to Western Kentucky. On the offensive line, Chris Booker from Hatfield Charter, 4-star committed to Alabama. He's rated as high as the number 15 interior offensive lineman in the country, 2026. Offensive line, Parker Pritchett from Carver Columbus, 4-star committed to Auburn, rated as high as the number 16 offensive tackle in the country for 2026. His teammate is Terrence Warren, a 4-star offensive tackle class of 2027, rated as high as the number 8 interior offensive lineman in the country for 2027. Also at offensive line, Jaden Thompson from Rockmart, 4-star class of 2027, rated as high as the number 12 interior offensive lineman in the class of 2027. And also Elijah Rowe from Callaway, 6'5", 285 senior, 8+ offers, including Georgia State, Georgia Southern, and Kennesaw State. AA defense, let's start on the defensive line. Tristan Givens, Carver Columbus, not only one of the best in AA, one of the best in the country. 5-star rated as a number 3 edge rusher for 2026, committed to Texas A&M, over 85 total tackles last year, 29 TFL, and 12 quarterback sacks. Joshua Coleman from Sumter County, 2024 first team All-State. He's committed to Ball State. Michael Johnson from Carver, Atlanta, 177 career total tackles, 84 TFL, 18 quarterback sacks. Recruiting, he's got several offers, including Western Kentucky. And Tyrone Fitton from Callaway, 3-star defensive tackle, committed to Colorado State. At linebacker, you got Fitton's teammate Zay Anderson from Callaway. He's a 3-star inside linebacker, committed to South Alabama. I had the pleasure to visit with and interview Jaguars head coach Major Applewhite at Sunbelt Football Media Days this past week. Also at linebacker, Chris Starr from Spencer, 192 total tackles, 26 TFL, 10 quarterback sacks, and that's not a whole career. That's just his sophomore season. Amazing. Also at linebacker, Nate Davis, Rockmart. He's a 2-way star running back, also 117 total tackles, 4 TFL. We did a Rockmart game this past season, 2024 season, on GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia. Nate Davis never came off the field. He's All-State here on my All-State team for AA. Also at linebacker, you got Jaden Knight from Appling County, 2024 All-State honorable mention. In the secondary, Terrius Favors from Carver, Atlanta, 2-way star, also a big-time wide receiver, 3-star athlete. He's committed to Boise State. He had 6 interceptions last year for Carver, and also a dynamic kick returner. Also at DB, you got Antavius Watts. He's a safety from Carver Columbus, a 3-star committed to Mississippi State, over to 76 total tackles last year, 8 TFL, 4 interceptions, and 12 PBU. At defensive back also, you got Hudson Hewlett from North Murray, 2-way star for the Mountaineers at quarterback and safety, 71 total tackles last year, 4 interceptions, and 7 PBU. And get this, he also rushed for over 1,400 yards and accounted for 12 touchdowns playing quarterback for North Murray. Ty Tillery from Morgan County, 5 interceptions last season as a junior, first team All-Region 2 AA, and he's committed to Auburn to play baseball. He's a pitcher. Special teams, you got place kicker Luke Waters from Stevens County, 2024 first team All-State. Cole's kicking 4.5 stars. Number 5 in Georgia. Offers include Wofford. He's 18 for 21 in career field goals. And at punter, you got Brooks Moore from Cook, 2024 first team All-State. Cole's 5-star punter, ranked number 8 in the country. He's been offered by Georgia State and Georgia Southern. Before we close out the podcast, got some news and notes to share, and unfortunately, it's not all good news. Perhaps by now you've probably heard the horrible news that came out of Carroll County this past week. Carrollton Trojans three-star running back Kamari Farmer, who was committed to Liberty, and Bowdon all-region running back slash linebacker Josh Davis, who had a huge game in their third consecutive state championship victory back in December, have both been charged with murder, along with another 15-year-old teen whose name has not been released because of his age. Carrollton police say the three shot and killed a 46-year-old man. Just a terrible story, and really nothing to say here about football because it's so inconsequential at this point in regards to what's going on with that story. More somber news. Arabian Mountain High School is mourning the death of player Micah King. He reportedly passed away after suffering a medical emergency during practice. Per GHSA rules, it was a helmet, no pads practice. Announcement on the cause of death is still pending, but our prayers are with Micah's family, his friends, his teammates, and coaches. Just tragic. And the Georgia High School Association is cracking down on multiple transfers. You might have heard this already, but we go back to this story because they made the rule official this past week. They had to vote on it twice, and they did. They made it official that any athlete who transfers twice after the ninth grade has to sit out a year. The rule goes into effect August 1st, but is not retroactive. Any athlete who falls under this rule after August 1st can make a hardship appeal to the GHSA, but the governing body has reportedly toughened the rules so as to make a hardship appeal difficult. So that's no doubt going to be met with applause by a lot of people, and it's also going to cause some consternation for other people. Wait and see how that rule plays out. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Matt Stewart Sports High School Football Podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, listening on Apple, listening on iHeart, wherever you're accessing this podcast. Looking forward to our next podcast. We'll have another big-time coach on, and we'll be hitting the 3A and probably the 4A preseason rankings and all-state teams when we do that. I'll be out of town most of next week calling the Little League Southeast Regional Baseball for ESPN. Looking forward to doing that. Do that every summer. It's such a pleasure to watch those kids play. And once I get back from that and we get this next podcast dropped, we're going to be basically a week away from the start of high school football season. So really looking forward to that. Again, like, follow, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Matt Stewart Sports High School Football Podcast.